Hey guys. Yeah, I'm a little tired, it's about 7:39 on this Tuesday evening. I just got off work about 2 hours and 9 minutes ago. And got picked up by my mom, and now she's at Bible study. So I thought I'd take this time to talk about something that really surprised me, and I'm sure surprised a lot of you. And you can kind of see the title in the description box, or in the title of in the video itself. Like I say, you kind of see the title in the video itself. And that is, could ToysRUs be making a comeback? Well, according to a report published by IGN and other sources, other news outlets, the lenders or the people in charge of auctioning off the ToysRUs brand names and everything associated with ToysRUs and its brands, like Babies R Us, Kids R Us, you get the idea, have called the auction off, and instead plan to use whatever they can to revive the brand. Basically, one report stated that it was probably not, it probably wasn't a good idea economically for this, I guess, this auction to go through or something. I don't know. But basically, the lenders, the people involved have said, we're not going to do this. Instead, we're going to revive the brand, and we're going to do it in a way that's more economically feasible, and helps basically at the same time relaunch it with a kind of a, not a hard reboot, but sort of a soft reboot, like a soft reset. Because according to what these articles are saying, they plan to basically keep global licensing agreements. They plan to expand internationally. They plan to continue to expand on the private brands, or the private licensed brands, or whatever, something like that. Basically, sorry for the bit of the space there, but basically, they plan to bring ToysRUs back, but they want to do it in a different way. They want to rebrand it as almost a different company, but it's not. Because what I'm getting out of this, from what I'm reading, or from what I've read, is they want to keep what made ToysRUs what it is. They want to keep what made its spin-off, Babies R Us, what it is. But they want to do it in a way that's not going to, drive them back into bankruptcy or drive them into the ground, just like sorry about that. Fumbled on my words there. But what I'm saying is, they don't want to go in a direction that will lead them back into bankruptcy and drive them back down into the ground like before. They want to do it in a way that's economically more feasible and realistic for them to go. And one of the things that the articles have talked about is them going in and developing and investing in new retail shops. Now, when I hear the word retail shops, when I hear that word, I don't think they mean go back to the way you were before. Go back to the way they were before, being in those big old buildings like, let's say, a Best Buy or a Sears or a J.C. Penney or whatever, a Macy's, whatever. Don't go back into those kind of buildings, but instead try to keep it more economically reasonable to work out of. In other words, what I think they're looking at, and this has actually already happened in the East Coast, and I think it's slowly expanding across the country. This has slowly happened in the East Coast, and it's starting to, like I say, slowly expand across the country. Circuit City, which went out of business, actually is slowly, as far as I still know, is slowly kind of making a comeback. What I mean by that is I read an article last year that stated that Circuit City was reopening. A couple of people were reopening Circuit City, but they were doing it in a more economical way. They were taking like a small space that was for rent in, like, let's say a villa, if you will, a small marketing villa, and opening Circuit City there. It's nothing big, nothing fancy. It's kind of like you go into a plaza, like a shopping plaza. You have all these little small stores, and right in the middle of it, or right at the end of it, you see a Circuit City, or you see one of those small buildings, one of those small stores occupied by Circuit City. So what I'm saying by bringing that up is I think that might be sort of what these guys are looking at. They're looking at going into the smaller like environment, and when it comes to retail stores. In other words, think along the lines of a Rite Aid. Think along the lines of a Rite Aid, or a CVS pharmacy, or a Dollar Tree, or a Dollar General. Think along those lines. Think along those lines, and you kind of get the idea of where I think they want to go directional-wise when it comes to developing and investing in new retail shops. Developing, opening, and investing in new retail shops, and that is to start small. It doesn't have to be anything massive. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, ToysRUs kind of did that, right? In a sense, they did. They worked out deals with certain mall locations across the country, and they did that. Yes, they did. But those were more like outlets. Like, if you didn't have a ToysRUs within your vicinity, but you had a mall, ToysRUs would work something out to have a ToysRUs-like outlet right there in the mall. It wasn't as big as a physical Toys-R-Us store would be, but still, it had what you wanted. And I think that's what they want to aim for. Something like what, sorry about that, but something along the lines of what that mall, I think, in Arizona had. Basically have a Toys-R-Us that is kind of more economically feasible. So let's say you go to Modesto, California, and you want to go to Toys-R-Us there. You're not going to go to that big Toys-R-Us store that was, I can't think of the road right now, but on the road that was heading towards the mall, or heading in towards the direction of the Vintage Mall. No, instead, you'd be going to a Toys-R-Us that could be right on Carpenter Road, in the place of, let's say, a Costless. Now I'm not saying Costless is going to go anywhere, okay? But you look at the size of Costless there, or you look at the size of CVS that's right next to them. Imagine one of those like kind of buildings in that plaza being occupied by Toys-R-Us or Babies R Us. That's exactly what they're looking for. As a matter of fact, every time I would go with my mom to Modesto, and we would go towards the Target closest to my sister's house, there was a Babies R Us right next to it. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And that Babies R Us wasn't big. And I think that's what they want to aim for, something that's like a Babies R Us like environment, where it's just big enough to sell the toys, sell what you want, and go from there. Because the other marketing strategy they could go with, and they probably will, is online. It's like, because I think one of the things they've noticed, one of the things I think these lenders, these people involved have noticed, is you can make money by having the item for sale on your website and have it sent to your store for pickup. Or if you have it in stock, have it bought online, and then the person can come in and buy it, as well as maybe buy something else while they're there. It makes sense. And I think they did start doing that a little before they closed. Well, they did the online thing, but you kind of get what I'm saying. You kind of get what I'm saying, right? But like I said, you kind of get what I'm saying, right? Basically, they're looking at all these other avenues they could go down. Like, if your store doesn't have, like, let's say a Toys R Us doesn't have a certain Transformers figure that's a Toys R Us exclusive. Let's say they sold out, but online they're in stock. They could have that figure sent to the store for you to pick up free of charge. It makes sense. It makes sense. It gets people to want to come in, get the item, maybe look around, see what else they could probably be interested in, stuff like that. But I think the other reason as to why I believe they will go in this direction of the small, more reasonable, economic-like retail stores, like a Rite Aid, like a building that would house a Rite Aid or a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree, and even locate themselves within something like a marketing villa or a marketing plaza in a small, like, little venue space, is so they could focus on what brought them to the dance. You see, I think what happened with Toys R Us was they started to lose their focus when they started to become more than just what they were about, and that's toys. Now, I'm not saying bikes are not toys and shouldn't be sold there. They should. But, honestly, if you're going to sell bikes, they should only be kids' bikes and not adult bikes. That should be your main focus. But I think this is what I believe is going to happen, honestly. Here's what I believe is going to happen. Should this go through, should this come to pass, and Toys R Us is resurrected from the ashes and softly reset in a new direction and is now operating out of smaller venue space like buildings, like in plazas and villas and all that. Here's what I think is going to happen. Toys R Us is going to still do what it's done best, sell toys. But I think they're going to go in but I think they're going to be more categorized. In other words, they're going to have sections for their exclusives. They're going to have sections for their established brands that they're partners with, like Hasbro, Mattel, you name it. Hasbro, Mattel, Disney. You get the idea. Lego, you get the idea. So they'll still kind of go back to what brought them to the dance, but they're going to make it more organized, more categorized. And I wouldn't be surprised that one of the things that they want to focus on is nostalgia, collectibles, for the older fans, for the older kids that don't want to grow up, if you catch my drift. Those that grew up with Toys R Us, from their childhood, that now look at something like, let's say, a Funko Princess Luna figure, and decide to collect it instead of play with it. Or they look at something like a Guardians of Harmony or fan series Starlight and Trixie and decide that's going to be for the adult fans. You kind of get what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I think they're going to organize it to where you're going to have your exclusive. You're going to have your My Little Pony section, but they're going to have it to where here's all the regular My Little Pony stuff, and here's the Toys R Us exclusive stuff. Same with Transformers. It's going to be like, here's all the Transformers stuff, here's the Toys R Us exclusive Transformers stuff. You get the idea, right? And I believe that's what's going to help them in the end. I think that's what's going to help them in the end. And I think the best business strategy they're going to go with is making sure those exclusives are also online and in stock both ways. And even if it's not in stock at the store, make sure that whenever someone orders it, that not only do you order that, not only do you get that exclusive for that person ready, but at the same time, you have enough of that same supply ready to be sent to that store so they'll have it in stock. But again, I think the main strategy right off the bat, as far as where they're going to house a Toys R Us and a Babies R Us, I believe it's going to be the more economical like venues. Like I said, places like where you would see a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree or a Rite Aid or CVS or what have you. Those small little areas, the small little buildings that are big enough to do a Toys R Us, but they're not colossal like the old Toys R Us buildings used to be. Because these new ones will be more economically feasible. So, but we'll just have to wait and see what develops. But if it all does come to pass, it's great to hear. And I think that if they go that direction that I believe they're going to go in, especially when they use the words retail shops, if they go that direction that I believe they're going to, it's going to help out in the end. It's going to help them out in the end, and it's going to hopefully help resurrect and bring the brand back to its prominence that it once had. Yes, it'll be a little different, but you know what? If it still continues the legacy of what the original Toys R Us was, I don't think any of us will really mind. So that's all I'm going to say on it, guys. Let me know what you all think down below. Comment if you like, and I will talk to y'all later.